What's up, fam and cheese? Today I want to talk about the wage gap, but before you click away, don't worry, it's not just another wage gap video. I have a slightly different point to make. You can find 1,000,001 debunks of the wage gap. It's been very, very thoroughly proven to be a complete and total fucking lie, and any person to this day in the third current year, aka 2017, if they're still trying to pimp the wage gap, if you meet a woman who's trying to act like she isn't paid the same for the same job, she's dumb. And that's usually what people focus on, is they say, if you're a person and you still believe in the wage gap, you're not very smart, you're not very good at fact checking, you're a listening believer, you didn't fucking Google it, because it's really easy to prove this. My favorite example is when the Obama administration, they would pimp the wage gap all the time, and they would totally present it in the super dishonest way that feminists pretend that they don't, but what they do is they state 77 cents on the dollar. They clearly intend for people to interpret that as a woman gets 77 cents for the same job. And then once you press them on it, they're forced to backpedal and admit, oh no, that's just like the aggregate earnings. Once you start controlling for the variables, the gap gets smaller. But what they'll do is they'll use half of the variables, and then they'll only get halfway through to explaining the gap, and then they'll just stop halfway and assume that whatever they couldn't explain was due to sexism. It's really, really lazy. Every single person who does this, not only are they bad at data and applying the evidence, but they're bad at fundamental logic, and they know they're lying. I refuse to believe that they're actually this stupid. I think they are genuinely being, disingenuous. But what's the point of this video, right? So, okay, wage gap is bullshit, everybody knows it. My point is that when we point this out and say that's bullshit, I take it one step further. I say, you just spread lies. You just made a false allegation against roughly half of all humans that when they're in a position of power, they're gonna do this sexist thing, when all evidence seems to indicate that the quote-unquote boys club and all this bullshit, it's really just women taking their own in-group preferences and then applying it to men and then assuming, well, hey, if I was in power, I'd be an absolute fucking dick, so therefore that's what men are doing. The problem, though, is that men have an out-group preference and are not dicks. So basically, you have women being dicks because a bunch of assholes are telling them that men are being dicks when really it's just women's own fucking sexism that they're projecting onto men. And there's no greater example of sexism among both men and women than the fucking wage gap myth. People are just willing to accept that at face value without doing any research into it. And you know what it is? It's not just stupid and wrong and ignorant, and it's not just funny to expose somebody for not knowing anything about an issue that they're super passionate about. To me, that's funny. But it's a false allegation. It's fucking evil. It's wrong. It's slanderous. They need to be held accountable. I throw out the word reparations all the time because I think it's fucking funny. I think it's hilarious that as an MRA, I can make stronger reparation arguments than literally anyone. I love the idea of putting reparations on the table because men win. Men win 100%. Even white straight men fucking win. I swear to God, in the entire oppression, calculus, privilege stack bullshit game, the victimhood pissing contest, I swear to God, if we could actually sit down and quantify all that shit, I don't think that women are winning. I think that women are paying. And that's so fucking funny to me because, they opened the door to this, right? The entire fucking premise of the women's movement was women are oppressed and therefore need special attention in order to catch up to men's rights. That was the argument, right? And women were totally fine accepting that, men were totally fine accepting that as the standards, okay, fine, if there's one group and they're oppressed relative to another, then we're totally justified in focusing on them and trying to help them and giving them a leg up. But then, as soon as it comes out, due to the internet, due to the fact that feminists can't fucking erase us anymore, now that it's undeniable that men have it worse than women, I get that some people will try to, play the wishy-washy, oh, I don't know who has it worse, but oh, fuck that. No, I'll argue anyone. Men have it worse than women, just objectively. If you control for things people's preferences and all that kind of stuff, the gender nonconformity, if you kind of control for all that, yeah, no, absolutely, no, there's no question. You're talking about getting raped versus getting murdered. You're talking about a fucking fake wage gap that doesn't exist versus a spending gap that is real. The pay gap, we hear about it all the fucking time. Let's grant it. Let's say it's true. Let's pretend that women only earn a you know what? Let's give them. Let's say it's 50 cents on the dollar. Okay. So let's say it's true that women only get paid half. Oh my god. Oh my god. What injustice. How horrible. Except reality, in reality, things are so fucked up right now that even if that were true, like even if that version of the wage gap were true, women are still fucking better off. Why? Because of the fucking spending gap. They still spend a fucking majority of all the money. So which is worse? Would you rather earn 100% of the money and spend 0% of it, or earn 0% of it and spend 100% of it? Not fucking rocket science. And you know what? Women understand that too. Every single woman who's on board with this fucking wage gap lie, she's a slanderous bitch. No exceptions. They need to apologize at the most, and if they're gonna fucking fight on it and act like no, they do have a claim, then we need to start talking about reparations, because at that point, it's fucking slander. So, fuck the wage gap, fuck the people who promote it, they're idiots. They're not just idiots, though. They are slanderous morons. They bought into a bigoted anti-male narrative without even fucking Googling it. So then the second point is, how come if you guys are so fucking concerned about fairness, how come the spending gap didn't come up? How come the gap in what women receive in taxation relative to men, how come that doesn't come up? How come that's not part of the equation, right? One thing that Paul Elam pointed out in one of his videos, the 10 immutable laws of men and women, you know, my favorite example he gives, he says, give me one example of a time when the women's movement fought for equality when it was not to women's immediate perceived benefit. I'll repeat that. Give me one example of when the women's movement fought for equality when the issue was not to the perceived immediate benefit of women. Give me one example. I can't think of a single fucking example. The closest I can get is like the one suffragette who wanted to like get rid of the draft so that suffrage would be not female supremacy, and she failed, and the entire women's movement since then failed. So they're all a bunch of female supremacists. It's not a hard argument to make. But then the other one was the Equal Rights Amendment, where like they got fucking cock-blocked by Phyllis Schlafly. Yeah, I mean, you guys even put a fucking Hayden rider on that to make sure that women wouldn't have any problems, and it still failed. So like it tells you everything you need to know about these so-called like traditionalist anti-feminists, that they're all like super anti-woman. Bullshit. I mean, as far as I can tell, the traditionalist women and the feminist women just collude, and it's just a pussy cult of giving women free shit for no fucking reason. And then they have the nerve to argue for this on the grounds of equality when they're procuring rights that no other human being has ever had with absolutely no reciprocal responsibility. Absolute bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. So all you people who believe in the fucking gender pay gap, not only should you pay reparations for being a bunch of slanderous bitches, but also the fact that like your number one issue is something fake. That's why I don't have a problem saying women's issues are fucking stupid and aren't real. Because if they were real, where are the women complaining about the fact that you guys don't have any fucking real problems to talk about and just like cloud up everything with the pay gap or the fucking rape culture or other fucking fake issues that don't matter? So often when we criticize SJWs and feminists, people criticize them on the grounds of their tone. They say, oh, well, you're never going to convince anyone if you're like that. You're never going to blah, blah, blah. But like the reason their arguments are bad is because their facts suck. Like, if it were true, if their claims made any sense, like if women just got paid 77 cents on the dollar, and that was the end of the story, right? No spending gap, no disproportionate government funding, none of that shit. Then yeah, like the outrage kind of makes sense, you know? Like if people are dumb and not very critical and they just believe the things, the conclusions they come to for those beliefs aren't totally unreasonable. If you legitimately believe that 1 in 4 women are raped, then yeah, the rape culture hysteria starts to make sense. So the problem is not that they're fucking freaking out, the problem is that they're fucking lying to themselves and lying to each other. So when people then turn around and say, oh my god, people in MGTOW or in the men's rights movement, in the manosphere are just like reverse feminists, really? Really? Go fucking show me where anything that the manosphere has done has had any kind of an influence, an impact on society the way the women's movement has. Show me. Give me one fucking example, because that's the first point, right? Is like we're talking about things within the context where we've had a fucking conversation about women's rights and giving shit to women for literally a century. And then the moment that it comes out that, oh, there's also men's issues, oh, well, now that's too much because your guys' rhetoric is too spicy. Oh, fuck you. fuck you, especially if you're a woman making that argument. How many fucking men's rights actual victories has the movement had? Go fuck yourself before you come in here and try to say, oh, men's rights are just gender flip feminism. Go fuck yourself, especially if you're a woman making that argument, because that is so fucking disingenuous. Oh my god. Because that was the fucking premise, and like nobody challenged the premise besides anti-feminists the entire time, and they just got quashed and erased and shut down until the internet made that impossible. Welcome to the history of the gender movement. All of our most sexist attitudes were manifested in the women's movement, and basically they just doubled down on all of the inequalities that were already there. So women do have a responsibility to kill the women's movement, to shut it down, to fucking euthanize it. It needs to end. And the longer things go on without it ending, like the more you have an argument to say, well, look, we've had this many years of female supremacy, and women have ganked men. They've forced men into suicide. They've forced men into wars. They've done all kinds of horrible shit, all on the grounds of the equality of the sexes. So why should I not be allowed to use those same grounds to argue, well, fuck, if you want to actually do that calculus, if you want to actually do that calculus honestly, looks like men are a lot worse off. Looks across the board. So anyway, that's my rant. The pay gap proves that there aren't any real women's issues, and they would rather slander men than do any fucking Googling, and that's the person you're dealing with. It's not just stupid, it's not just funny, it's evil. And tell them it's evil, and make them own the evil. Because right now, you know, ridicule isn't gonna do it. I absolutely do not shy away from the language of moral condemnation, because feminists do things that are morally condemnable, and the most important difference between the men's movement and the women's movement is not the fact that men advocate for men and women advocate for women or whatever. Well, that's not accurate. I should say the men's movement versus the women's movement, because both are comprised of men and women. But the point, the most important difference is that our claims are true. Our evidence is correct. The most important difference, it's not like that feminists are just bad at logic. Yeah, they're bad at logic, but they're bad at facts. And that's the more important thing. Their facts are shit. They don't deny the facts of the MRM, and that's really all you need. It's hard to believe it's that simple, but the deeper you go into it, the more you're just going to see the same thing over and over again. If there were debunks to the claims of the men's rights movement we're making, we'd have seen them by now. Instead, what they do is they pretend, oh, feminism's not a monolith, and there is a good shard of feminism out there somewhere. It's just that this good strain of feminism does nothing to combat the other parts of feminism, does nothing to help men, and none of these issues are even on their radar until after men's rights activists bring them up, and then they have to circle back, and then the feminists pretend that it's fucking their issue. And it's horseshit. I can give you a million examples of this. I've been ranting long enough. You guys have a good day.